Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments. Today I got this, the 1/48 scale Bristol Bulldog Mk II from Airfix. Unfortunately, my box was a bit damaged and I can show you why when I take the top off, because this box top is extremely thin card, much like the 1/48 Sea Fury from Airfix, which is a shame because the box art is gorgeous. So beneath that lid we have the plastic, all contained within a single recyclable bag with transparencies in another bag inside that. Under that are the instructions, folded vertically to get them into this size box. The large decal sheet and its protective cover are underneath that, and this looks pretty good on first glance. This leaves the empty box, and I've said this before about some of the Airfix boxes, but the cardstock used seems far too thin for the size, and especially length of this box, meaning that it has a lot of flex to it. The instructions are in standard Airfix A4 booklet format, with multilingual information on the aircraft and modelling techniques on the front cover and first sheet of the inside. We then progress to the actual instructions, and these are in the usual three-dimensional drawing format with colour used to highlight areas during construction, which I really like. Any alterations based on choices or alternatives are well addressed when needed, as here. The one criticism I have of the instructions are that, like the Gannet, each step seems a little small, making them not quite as clear as some out there. There's quite a section given over to the Jupiter power plant, which is a central feature of the aircraft and the model itself. Training bombs are also supplied. We also have an extensive section covering the rigging of the aircraft, which I have mixed feelings about. On the one hand, I think this is really nice and a great boon to anyone who is going to go that extra step on the model. On the other hand, this covers a full 4 sides of the instruction book, where construction took 7 sides, and if the rigging guides are what force the construction steps to be a bit smaller and cramped, then I'm not really a fan. Anyway, we then move on to the schemes, and 3 are provided for as part of the booklet, 2 RAF and 1 Australian. The 2 RAF aircraft feature nice bright markings and were based at Upavon, not a million miles from where I live. I was a bit surprised one of them wasn't K-1676, the aircraft that Douglas Bader lost his legs in. The RAF machine is shown as an aircraft from No. 1 Flying Training School in Victoria. Next we come to the decals. These are standard Airfix cartograph fare and look absolutely superb. The individual markings for each aircraft are included and look great. You also have a large number of common markings which are also pristine. Looking a little closer here, you can see just how good these are, with crisp, tight printing and intense colours and precise register. The individual markings means no masking here. Whilst the common stencils and instrument panels show just why these are the best decals out there. Next up we have the plastic, and we'll start with the fuselage frame. As you can see, being an interwar aircraft, the Bulldog is not very big. Nevertheless, the detail on the ancillary items, the fuselage itself, and the extensive interior is excellent. Though there is the smallest trace of flash on the interior framing, the engine parts here are free from that. Overall, the casting here is excellent, and that includes the inside of the fuselage as well. Moving on to frame B, we have the upper and lower halves of the main wing, including the associated strutting. The ribbing effect and recessed detail here is subtle yet effective, and once again the overall moulding level is very high. Frame D covers the shorter lower wing, and there's not much extra to add for this other than to confirm the same level of casting finesse. Onto frame C, or as I would call it, the fiddly bits sprue, and we can see some of the incredible levels of casting finesse demonstrated in parts all across this frame. Whether external or internal details, the pieces here are produced to the finest levels available today. Frame E mainly covers the Jupiter engine cylinder heads, which are beautifully reproduced here and as we'll see on the close-up shortly. The engraving here is scalpel blade fine and will please most builders. Last up is the tiny transparency frame, which I'll talk about in a minute, right after this thank you. Now at this point of the video, I just want to thank all of my Patreon and YouTube channel members. I mentioned that I was going to put this mid-roll in future videos in my prior video on this, and I had to add a few more names onto the list since then, so thank you so much to all of you. Your help at this time is very much appreciated. If you are able to become a channel member, it really does contribute a huge amount to me being able to keep the channel going, and at the moment it's my preferred platform for support. So here's that transparency frame again, and you can see it's super clear and crisp and well cast on the port side. Looking on the starboard side, however, it appears we have a short shot. That's certainly what I first thought. This is not the case, however, since most Bulldogs had an asymmetric canopy frame, and this casting is intentional, so just watch out for that before you try contacting Airfix customer support. Back to the engine cylinder frame now, and hopefully you can see that delicate ribbing here. We also have the rudder with its detail and casting lugs, but most of the parts here are those cylinder heads with more of that delicate ribbing for the cooling fins. Care will be needed to preserve this when building. The Fiddly Bits frame also shows how good this casting is. These parts are tiny and just as good as any other manufacturer out there, but in general the size and fiddliness of the parts is a bit more manageable, and I generally feel Airfix strike this balance between detail and excessive parts pretty well. We have nice detail on the pilot seat, the exterior cylinder shrouds, and the bracing struts are commendably thin without being too fragile. We have a nice instrument panel, other internal cockpit items, and some nice little training bombs too. The main feature of the lower wings is their refined and subdued fabric effect, which looks perfect to my eyes. The small metal panels for rigging and other attachments are picked out well too. Wheels and landing gear on interwar aircraft hadn't progressed much since World War I, but these are nicely recreated here anyway. Once again, the fabric effect on the upper wing is superb, with the metal panels distinct and obvious. The control surfaces for these wings are single piece affairs, but are commendably thin at their trailing edges. Finishing up with frame A, you can see the main structure of the engine, as well as those interior cockpit framing pieces here, complete with various control clusters. The bottom and rear of the seat are lovely castings, as are the rear fuselage inserts. Looking closely at the main fuselage halves themselves, you can see how well the forward metal section and the main fabric covered tubing sections are represented and detailed here. It really does look very smart. The horizontal stabilisers are very clean and crisp, as are the exhausts, and the two-bladed prop is a lovely item with this delicately reproduced twist. This is a lovely model kit from Airfix of an era that is often overlooked. The casting here is top-notch, with good detail and some of the best aircraft fabric representation I've seen. The decals are typically industry-leading, with fantastic register, colour density and precision, and the inclusion of such a detailed rigging guide is really thinking of modelers who want to elevate their builds. On the flip side, there are a couple of small detractors. The instructions feel a little too cramped, possibly because of those rigging instructions, which feels a little counterintuitive. The box is far too flimsy for the kit too, which is a real shame because the box art is stunning, and my example was marred because of that flimsy cardstock. These are minor points though, and more puzzling really is the subject itself. The Bulldog is not a very well known aircraft, having almost no combat career and drawing its main claim to fame from Douglas Bader's accident in one. The fact that this aircraft is not depicted then seems a little puzzling, given that I'm sure many who buy it will still want to depict this. On the one side, it's refreshing that Airfix haven't done the obvious, but I do feel it's a missed opportunity to sell this kit in larger numbers. Maybe that's for the future, but I'd have expected that on a first release because I don't think it's a subject you can wring a lot out of in future re-releases. That brings me to the price point. This kit is $28.99 RRP, though you can pick it up for around £26 or £27. That puts it in the same price bracket as things like the Tamiya 148 scale Me262 or Sky Raider, and quite a bit more than their 148th Mosquito or a new Edouard Tempest. It's quite a bit more than Airfix's own 148 scale Tiger Moth, which is probably the most directly comparable kit to this. It's not that it's a bad kit or that it's astronomically expensive, it just feels like its price is slightly out of whack with the plastic given that it's a more niche aircraft. Maybe it is paying that niche premium, as Airfix may have calculated they won't sell as many of them as other more popular aircraft, so it may be something that Silver Wings builders out there may just have to accept and swallow, but I think that it means it slips out of the impulse buy category for those not already fans of this period. In any case, this is still a lovely kit of an interesting subject, and I'd have no hesitation in recommending it to anyone looking for something a bit different from the usual run-of-the-mill Spitfires and 109s. That's all for this instalment of Man's Model Moments. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel for more like it, and share this video with others you think would also enjoy it. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and if you're feeling generous then I also have a Patreon, which is absolutely the best way of helping me to grow the channel and produce more content like this. With that, I hope you have plenty of modelling moments of your own, and I look forward to welcoming you on the next video.